A loaded show for you guys today, but first things first, we are so close to our next milestone, 19,000 subscribers. You can almost taste it right now. So help us reach that milestone. We are 50 plus away. Hit the sub button down below if you have not already. If you love the Cleveland Browns and you want a Browns YouTube channel that chants F Pitt every single day, this is the channel for you. What's going on, Browns fans? Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the 4 rumored edge targets that might be on Cleveland's radar after a recent article from a certain insider published it. Plus, we're going to wrap up the show by looking at the 5 alternate logos the Browns have for a finale as they gear up to pick the next alternate logo. I don't really know how else to say it. So with that being said, though, let's jump into the edge rushers portion of the show. So Andrew Berry hopped on ESPN Cleveland, and he talked about what the Browns might be doing in free agency, or really what they might be doing until the season rolls around, and specifically about adding some more pass rushers. And here's what he said. There may be some other things that we're looking to do, either on the veteran market or trade market over the next several weeks. So definitely keep Cleveland in mind anytime a edge rusher is up for grabs or is looking to sign somewhere, the Browns are going to be doing their homework. So with that being said, the first guy I want to talk about is Frank Clark. So Mary Kay put out an article where she identified 4 players the Browns might be looking at / she's heard some rumblings of, and Frank Clark was on that list. Now, there have been some mixed rumors on the Browns' level of interest on Frank Clark. We'll get to that more in a little bit. He's entering his 9th season, 4 years in Seattle and 4 years in Kansas City. He was extremely productive for the Chiefs, 3-time Pro Bowler in the last 4 seasons, which I'm starting to realize you really can't use Pro Bowls as a measuring stick anymore. When Tyler Huntley is a Pro Bowl quarterback, it kind of waters down every single attribute a Pro Bowler can get. But with that said, Frank Clark is a very good football player, right? He was very good for the Chiefs in the postseason specifically, and I have long stated on the show, if the Browns want to play beyond December and January and skip the tee times and continue playing into February, Frank Clark could be a very good addition for a postseason run. Now, Mary Kay added this when it comes to Frank Clark in her write-up, saying, the Browns haven't shown much interest in Clark, 29, who spent the past 4 seasons in Kansas City after the first 4 in Seattle. So here's where the mixed rumors-ish come into play. I never thought we'd get to this point in the show, but we have this tweet from Professional Hater with Jimmy Butler. It's kind of gone viral a little bit within Browns Twitter, okay? He tweeted out, report, there is a strong belief that former Chiefs and Super Bowl champion defensive end Frank Clark will sign with the Browns within these next upcoming weeks. He'll be joining his future teammate Juan Thornhill per Ryan Russillo. Keep it right here, Tex, because we have a couple things to break down here. One, Professional Hater has like 250 followers on Twitter. So by no means is he some big J with deep connections in Berea, unless he is Andrew Berry's burner, which I have to believe AB has a burner, and I really would like to find it one day. But he said per Ryan Russillo. So Ryan Russillo has a podcast with The Ringer, and they talk NBA primarily. And the tweet this day came out on May 4th. Ryan Russillo put out a podcast that day, the Ryan Russillo podcast, and there was no mention of Frank Clark in it that I could find. I have not found an audio clip where Ryan Russillo in his show, in the midst of talking about the NBA playoffs, their main beat decide, let's allocate 5 minutes to some NFL rumors and free agency for the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know if Professional Hater just completely made this up and said per Ryan Russillo because that's a notable name and some people thought it might be true, or there is a clip out there and I have not found it, but I am not going to pick Professional Hater's word over Mary Kay's word when it comes to the Browns' level of interest for Frank Clark. Now, should they have interest in Frank Clark? That's a separate question. His last 4 seasons with Kansas City, 5 sacks, 4.5 sacks, 6 sacks, 8 sacks. He's gone over 10 sacks twice in his career. He's always been like a Robin on steroids, right? Where he might not be a true number one edge rusher for a team anymore, but he'll be a darn good number two. And on some teams, he could be a number one, but you probably want to shoot a little bit higher than that. So let me know what you guys are thinking. Should the Browns sign Frank Clark? Y for yes or N for no? Give me your opinion down in the comment section below. Moving on to our next edge target. This is Yannick Ngakoue, the journeyman edge rusher, right? We all know by now the guy lives out of a suitcase. He hopefully rents and does not buy. He has been on a bunch of teams. Now, what's bizarre is that he is still a free agent because he has never had fewer than 8 sacks in a season in his 7-year career. From Jacksonville to half a season in Minnesota and Baltimore to the Raiders to the Colts. He's coming off a 9.5 sack season for Indianapolis last season. He turned 28 years old back in March, so he's still got a lot of juice left in the tank. You're going to see he's one of the youngest guys we're going to talk about on today's show. Now, Ngakoue, over the past 4 seasons, he has been rock solid consistent. 9.5 sacks, 10 sacks, 8 sacks, 8 sacks. Like, if his floor is 8 sacks, for the Browns, that is like what you're drooling over because you've yet to have a consistent number 2 guy for Myles Garrett throughout his career in Cleveland. Now, what's the knock on Ngakoue is, like, you know how batting average is out for MLB and OPS is in? Sacks, believe it or not, might be sort of batting average where the deep nerds of football look for pressures. That is what they want to see, right? How often are edge rushers disrupting the offensive play? And even if it's not a sack, maybe it's an incomplete pass. And then they go from 2nd and 10 to 3rd and 10, which in a lot of GM's eyes is just as good as a sack because they did not move the football down the field. Now, here are some interesting numbers you might want to see. The 2022 total pressures. I picked 5 players here. Some of them as reference points, some of them because we're talking about them specifically. Myles Garrett, for example, had 73 pressures last year. Pressures is a combination of sacks, hits, knockdowns, right? All that good stuff. He had 816 snaps. Now, snaps is important because you only get so many shots at, getting after the quarterback. Trey Hendrickson, just for reference, by the way, for the Bengals, he had 62. He's a very good edge rusher, and he did it in 629 snaps. Frank Clark had 45, and Ngakoue had 44. They both had similar snap counts at 700-ish. So that might be a reason why these 2 guys are unsigned, because, yeah, they might get some sacks, and they might get 6, 7, 8, 9 sacks or whatever, but what are they doing besides those 6, 7, or 8, 9 plays, right? If that's all they're good for and they're not seeing QB hurries and knockdowns and things like that, might be viewed as sort of taking plays off. Whereas for the most recent edge rusher addition for the Browns in free agency, Obo Okoronkwo, 36 pressures, but he only played 517 snaps. So if you prorate that to 700-ish, he is right there with the Frank Clarks and Ngakoues and Trey Hendricksons of the world. So that could be a big reason why Ngakoue and Clark are still unsigned, is they've got the sacks, but if that's all they're good for, that's sort of the batting average of the NFL stat world right now. Teams want to see pressures too. Moving on to our next target on the show. This one is, we'll get up on screen for you guys here, Melvin Ingram, 34 years old, been around the league for quite some time. First round pick for the San Diego Chargers at one point. Now, last year for Miami, he was a late signing for the Dolphins. He had 6 sacks, and he didn't even start most of the games for Miami. 6 sacks at 33 as a rotational piece. I mean, that's really good value right there for the Dolphins. Like, that went as well as they could have hoped for, okay? Entering his 12th season in the NFL. Now, PFF ranked him, by the way, 40th out of 119. He did turn 34 in April, so he is up there in the age column. He is the oldest guy we're going to look at today. But Ingram, over the last 4 seasons, 6 sack season, say that 10 times fast, in 2022. 2021 was not a good year for him. He signed with the Steelers and then was traded to the Chiefs, if you recall. Before that, with the Chargers, he started to go downhill a little bit, but a resurgence last year, and only 3 games started, I believe, and that's fine because the Browns want to use him as a rotational piece anyway, might be sneaky good value for Cleveland. Melvin Ingram is probably the last resort for the Browns if they get priced out from some other free agents, right? The next guy we're going to look at is going to command the most money of all four players, most likely. So if the Browns take a swing at him and they don't land him, well, maybe they kind of go back to Melvin Ingram in August if they're not liking how Alex Wright and Okoronkwo or whatever are looking out of the gate in training camp. That's a bit premature, but the point being is Melvin Ingram might be plan C or D for the Browns. Now, before we look at that last player, Fanatics still has this great t-shirt combo deal on sale too when you use our exclusive link, chatsports.com/CLE combo. Don't just get one shirt. You get two shirts on sale, one short sleeve, one long sleeve, no matter the weather. So get it today. It's in the comments and the description of this video. All right, let's look at our number 4 edge target. This is Leonard Floyd. These are the 4 guys that MKC identified in her article about some edge rushers the Browns could be targeting. Now, Leonard Floyd was the 9th overall pick by the Bears in 2016. The last 3 seasons, 9+ sacks with the LA Rams. The Bears did not pick up his 5th-year option, so after 4 years in the Windy City, he moved to the City of Angels and put up 9+ sacks every single season with a guy named Aaron Donald on the defensive line. But Myles Garrett is right there with the Aaron Donalds of the world too. So if you can bring that type of production opposite Myles Garrett, you have to imagine that Andrew Berry would be interested at least. Now, last year, PFF ranked him, in case you're wondering, 55th. Now, Leonard Floyd in his career, it's kind of like a tale of two cities, right? With the Chicago Bears, 18.5 sacks in 54 games. With the LA Rams, 29 sacks in fewer games. He was way more productive in LA. I don't have a good rhyme or reason. It's not like he was a one-man band in Chicago. He was working with Khalil Mack. Like that 2018 Bears defense was very good. Akeem Hicks. There were a lot of nice pieces that all complemented one another, but he hit his stride when he went to the Rams. Now, the hiccup for Leonard Floyd, if it's not just the price tag, because he's going to get some money in free agency, even though it's May, he's going to find over $10 million, I predict. He's always been an outside linebacker in a 3-4 front. It is not what the Browns are going to run, right? They do a 4-3 front, a wide 9 at times under Jim Schwartz, of course. So it would be a whole new schematic change for Leonard Floyd, and I don't know how well that change would go, right? You don't want to spend $11, $12 million just to find that you're trying to shove a rectangle in a circle. Like, some guys just do not play well in certain schemes, and teams find out the hard way after they try and force them to adapt, and that's just not their, best football. Now, Mary Kay added this, saying, but this is the time of the year for the veteran edge rushers still on the market to find their new homes, and the Browns will likely end up with one of them before the start of camp. The pickings are slim, but Garrett could have another savvy veteran to play off of this season. So of the 4 players we talked about today, if you had to sign one, which one would it be? Frank Clark, Yannick Ngakoue, Melvin Ingram, and Leonard Floyd. I'm going to give you my pick of the litter in just a moment, but give me yours in the comments section below. Floyd is my favorite player of the bunch. He's younger than the rest of them, and he's been very, very productive for the Rams. The scheme fit is a major concern for me, right? Usually I don't get too hung up on that because if you're a good football player, you're going to find a way after a couple of weeks and getting used to the change to find a role for yourself. But I don't think Leonard Floyd is big enough, honestly, to, size-wise, to be a true defensive end in a 4-3 front. He might get pushed around a little bit. So I don't know if they'd actually want to use him at outside linebacker, like a JOK role, but much more emphasis on the pass rush. You're not going to pay him all that much just to have him come in on third downs. That's what you'd pay Melvin Ingram to do. Hey, we know you're old. We're not going to ask you to do any of the boring 1st and 10 stopping the run stuff. Can you come in on 3rd and 7 and we'll take out Jordan Elliott and bring on an extra pass rusher? That's Melvin Ingram. That's where he is in his career. Maybe even Frank Clark too. But Leonard Floyd, no. You're going to be paying him a good chunk of change you're going to be playing him a lot, and I don't exactly know what that role would be. Like, you want to pay him $10+ million to be a rotational edge rusher? No, Leonard Floyd is a starter in the NFL. He is not taking snaps off so that Isaiah McGuire can get a good run in. Like, I don't see how Leonard Floyd would fit in with Cleveland. So I think Frank Clark might be your best fit, right? Melvin Ingram is on the older side. Ngakoue, I like, but why is it that he just cannot find a home in the NFL? Frank Clark is not going to be anywhere for too long wherever he signs, probably. But for the Browns, if they want to do damage in the postseason, Frank Clark's your man. I want to give some shout-outs, by the way. I know this video has been running long, so I want to get you guys on your way. But shout out to Josh Myers, Joshua Miller, and Billy Lingerl for sharing our videos over on Twitter. Be sure to do so. Tag me at Matthew Petey, and I'll give shout-outs to everyone who does so. Before we get on out of here, like I talked about at the start of the show, the Browns have announced the 5 finalists for the alternate logo. And listen, I'm not crazy about like having very, very passionate takes when it comes to this alternate logo. They all seem good to me, but if you don't like top left, you don't know art. Like, that's going to be my that's going to be my slogan for this. Top left is my favorite. I've never been a fan of the demonizing of the dog logos, but I don't like top right really all that much. The bottom left one, no good. It's top left or nothing. Top left or nothing. All right, that is it for today's show. I'm going to sign off and see everyone later.